So, I want to get this out of the way.
Okay.
Immediately.
Yes.
Today, Philly smelled like a fart for like an hour. And I don't know if it's happened before. When you live in the city, there's a lot of really fun smells that happen. Like one day it smelled like maple syrup for like 3 hours. Today it smelled like a fart for 30 minutes.
Oh.
Did you get that on your end of the city?
Was this just on your block?
Maybe
Were you going through Philadelphia and it smelled like a fart everywhere?
See, I didn't have a chance to drive around the city all day today. I'm working.
We work.
We both work. But no, it's just, I don't know if anybody else experiences this in any other city, but...
Yeah. I experienced it the other night with a friend of mine where we smelled it smelled bad, and it was like, is that a skunk? My friend thought it was a skunk, and I was like, I think it's marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't think is a terrible smell, but it smelled really funky, and then I had to go to the window and continue to try to determine, but where we live, I just can't imagine a skunk smell. Can travel, because they travel.
We have skunks, we have possums.
Oh yeah, possums.
Yeah.
Yes, I had one in my backyard before.
And one of my neighbors, or one of the kids, I live right next to a school, an elementary school, one of the kids has taken up smoking weed, so, hey, more power to you.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby. It's an expensive hobby, but it's a hobby. But I mean, every day, and this is a new thing, like the past week, we're like, Dan, are you smoking pot? No. Are you? No. Who's in our house smoking pot? It's like so strong. But then I open the windows and I'm like,
it's just that beautiful Philadelphia air.
Yeah, yes. It covered up the fart smell.
So how was your week?
Good. Busy. Lots of class stuff. I'm going for a bunch of different certifications right now. So taking 2 classes simultaneously, which may not seem like a lot, but it's very like lecture heavy / reading heavy / homework heavy / coaching heavy, because we're coaching each other for homework, or you're in a coaching circle and doing reciprocal coaching, and like it's a lot. I'm coaching multiple fellow students along with my regular clients, along with the reading so it's like it's getting used to this like added level of work, but I'm enjoying it because I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, so you're going to be even more superb than you already are.
Shut your face. Didn't ask for that, but I appreciate it. Wasn't fishing, but I'm glad I caught something.
I gave you a plug. Ralph Andracchio.
Plug.
True Engine Coaching, just saying.
Please. And the Philly therapist, Kristin, if we're going to plug each other.
Oh,
right?
Thank you.
Yes. One of the best therapists I know.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do you know others, though?
No. See, that's the thing.
Oops.
You're okay.
I'm so sorry.
Nope,
right.
It's okay.
All right. I'm knocking Ralph's drink.
It's okay. It's okay.
5 minutes
in. My pants are very absorbent.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's not a podcast until somebody spills something on me. That's how every podcast I've been on, I've spilled something on myself.
I spill constantly, so I make a concerted effort to not spill when I'm here, because it's not my house, A, and B, there's a video camera in front of me, so let's try to behave.
Right. So this week we have a question that came to us not only through somebody listening, but also we've gotten it separately at different times in different ways from different clients that we're both seeing.
Yes.
And this week is all about regret. And not necessarily just regret, but wasted time. And, I've heard this from clients, I've heard it from friends, I've heard it from myself. Mm-hmm. Did I waste my time?
Yes.
Did I waste my time doing that thing? Did I waste my time hanging out with that person? Did I waste my time in that relationship, at that job? So I think this is a really fun one to dig into. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited. I'm just excited about digging into it. What do you think?
No, I think it keeps coming up. And I think that it is something that can lead us into a negative headspace. Mm-hmm. And self-deprecating, which I feel like we bring up every week, and putting ourselves down and feeling less than.
Yeah.
when we look at things this way. Plus, if we do it a whole lot, we're missing the growth and the life lessons that we've had through that time period.
Right. It comes up when people, at least the ones I work with, are thinking about time spent at a career. Either at a career, at a specific job, or looking for specific jobs. And then they think to themselves, oh, you know, through the process of working with me, they discover, oh, now I'm realizing I really should be looking over here more than over here. Like maybe this is a better, and then they're like, oh, I just wasted all this time looking at this other thing. And the first thing I would ask anybody who says I've wasted my time at X is, what do you mean by wasted time?
Yes.
You know, describe to me what the wasted time is. What do you think? What do you think normally people would answer when you ask them, you know, what do you mean by wasted time?
For me, it's more around, I'm sure it has come up around the career piece, but a lot of it has been around relationships or where the individual is in their life at this point. And I think it wasted time. Haven't gotten where I want to be, stayed in a situation, which kind of goes along with what you said too, that wasn't good for too long, stayed in a relationship situation too long, and when I could have been doing other things, could have been with somebody else if it's about a relationship, could have been happier. That kind of stuff is where what comes up a lot for the clients and people I've had this conversation with.
And I think it's good to make a distinction between career and relationship, because the wasted time.
Is it though?
Yeah, no, I'm second guessing myself as I'm saying the words, because I wanted to tie it back to sense of self, especially when it comes to relationships. If you're like, oh my God, I was with this person for a year and then we broke up, and it was like I realized I wasted my time, a year of my time being with this person, and I think automatically, well, it goes back to sense of self. And why did you feel like you had to stay with that person? You know, was it a comfort thing? Was it a I couldn't do better thing? You know, and then I think career-wise, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe careers and relationships are the same thing, like in the sense of wasted time and regret.
I think it's the same thing. I'm trying to think of what would be different about it. I guess there is, with a career or a job, there is, in some cases, you really can't get out. And what I mean by that is there's a financial stability piece to it.
Sure.
Whereas if you don't have something else, or you can't easily get something else, then in order to survive, you have no other way unless you stay in that job maybe longer than you wanted to. That would be the one piece. That can also play into relationships too, but that's the piece, is that your job is your livelihood that allows you to pay your bills and live and survive and buy food and all that stuff. So I think there are instances where in a position, somebody doesn't have the freedom to just be able to up and leave, even if that's better for themselves.
Right. And that brings the idea of privilege into it, because, you know, when we say wasted time and regret, sometimes people don't have the choice of leaving a relationship or leaving a job. And I think it's good to remember, if you do have the choice, you are, you know, to feel some gratitude that you're in a position where you can make the choice. Right. You can say, oh, I have other options. And I want to be mindful that some people don't have the option to leave, you know, an abusive relationship, or like you said, I can't leave this job because I don't have another option and it's paying my bills, and I have, you know, that's low on the priorities list of things I need to worry about right now. So I think I get all that, but I still think it's good to have the conversation about what it means to waste your time, because it happens to everybody. Even if you don't have a choice, you could still feel like, oh, I've wasted my time doing this thing. And it's a good mental exercise to kind of flip the script and say, what have I learned?
Right. Can I rearrange for a minute on the couch? I need to take my shoes off.
Go ahead.
And kind of do a little bit of what you're doing.
Yeah, please.
Because I feel like I'm not comfortable. And my brain works better when I'm comfortable.
I'll leave this in the video, but not the podcast. We'll cut that part out.
Sorry, Ralph.
That's okay.
Okay, so yes, I think that if you are really, no time is wasted. Even if you go as far as, I laid on the couch today and watched 6 hours of Netflix. Could that be kind of waste of time? I guess. But could that just be what you needed to do that day to take care of yourself? Like, so why did you do that? I was tired. I was sad. I wanted some alone time. I really wanted to watch the show, whatever it is. So there's something in that. That's a very simple example. But I think that framing it in a way that it's wasted, that I regret, that I did something wrong, just keeps you in a negative space. It is, again, it's almost like saying you did something wrong. There's a deficit within you. And it also can get in the way of what you just said, of being able to identify the progress and growth that you've had over that period of time. What did you learn from that, like you just said?
Right.
Me and Ralph were talking before we started about what I've been trying to do with this is reframe it and have that individual go back and discuss what areas of growth has happened over that year, even if they haven't achieved what they want to achieve, whether that be a relationship or maybe a move up at the company. What have they learned about themselves, about the job, about relationships, whatever the case may be. And that if you hadn't had that experience this past year, 2 years, whatever years, you wouldn't know all of that now. And so that's not wasted time. You may not be where you want to be, but all of the time that has gone by has provided you with more information, more growth, more progress on some level, more knowledge than you had prior to. But you almost sometimes have to reframe it and change the narrative.
How do you change the narrative?
Hopefully by doing what I've been trying to do with my clients, which was helpful per their report, of being able to go back and look at all of those things, being able to look at, I'm turning whatever age this year, and I don't have this and I don't have that, and what have I really done this year? Well, what have you really done this year? What have you really learned this year?
Right.
And taking the steps to go back and look at that and highlight that and recognize that in most cases, there are lots of things that happened that are further preparing you for maybe what that ultimate thing is that you want to have or where you ultimately want to be.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was getting at with asking how do you frame the narrative, is saying simply, oh, I wasted all this time doing this thing. Instead of saying that, saying, here's what I learned doing this thing. Even if it's, and I think I used this example in our episode with Ryan and Neil back in episode 1 of this season, where, you take a cooking class. Well, I took the cooking class, it's over, and I still freaking hate cooking. Like, great, you learned that you don't like cooking. And now you could probably say specifically what you don't like about cooking because you took the class, so you know more about yourself now, even if it was a quote unquote negative experience, than you did before that experience.
Yes.
Because you've had the experience, it's in your bank, in your mental bank, and now I do not like that thing because A, B, C, D. When before you just said, I don't really like cooking. I don't know, I just don't like it. Now you can say, I don't like it because I don't like chopping stuff. I don't like heating stuff up. I don't like, I can't put it on a plate and put it in the microwave and push start. I don't like it. Great, you've learned something about yourself, And speaking along those lines of taking a class to learn something, I think I've wasted my time comes up a lot when people have spent money doing something.
Yeah.
Right?
That'll do it.
If there was a monetary price tag to that experience, people are more apt to say, well, that was a waste of time and money, and they feel even more bad about it or angry about it because they can't get that, quote unquote, they can't get that money back. Do you find that too?
Yes, I think less in what I do, but I've definitely heard that from people in my in my life throughout the many years of my life.
Many 25 years of your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you didn't get what you wanted to get out of it, then you often can be upset about the money spent. And I understand that. And I do think that's, I don't want to say it's an exception, but I do think that's an added layer to grapple with. But you probably really did learn. Like, for instance, if you were to not do your research and hire somebody to come do some work on your house, and maybe you get like gypped, it's bad work, and then you end up having to put more money out. That sucks. That's a lot of money that is gone that you no longer have. But what you did learn was about the steps you should be taking, the questions you should be asking, the things you should be looking for prior to hiring someone to do X thing in your house.
Right.
Like, if you just sort of were like, I'm anxious about this, I need somebody, okay, this person said they can do it, and you really didn't kind of do your due diligence of assessing the Yelp review, whatever it is that you're going to look up, and really looking into it, and then you had to go back and have it done all over again. I'm not saying you can always control for these things. I'm just saying in this type of example, being able to do the background work and deal with the anxiety you have over having to get this taken care of, and check references or check whatever, and then you better know what you're dealing with. There's still a chance, but of course something can go wrong, but that's like a little example that popped in my head of something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's an example of a warranted regret of like, ooh, I should have looked at this person's background a little more, asked around, asked for references. Now I know. So it's a warranted regret. And also, yes, in the big scheme of things, could be considered not a great use of money, but now and you won't make that decision again. So it may have been worth the price of admission to learn that mistake, So, and also I think of it in terms of my degree. Like, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting from Temple University. Go Owls. I think I've said that before. I don't use it. Very expensive piece of paper that I have that I don't use it. But was it a waste of time and energy? No, because I went to this amazing, at the time I went, top 10 school in the country for art. I learned a ton about the arts and art history and my place in the art world. I made some amazing art for myself and for my family and friends. I had a show. I made amazing friends that some of them I still talk to this day. Just the life experience of it was amazing. I got to meet people and do things and take trips that I wouldn't have gotten to before. So do I use the degree? No. Could I use it in the future? Yes. But was it a waste of time and money? No, because there's all this peripheral stuff that happened that I'm very grateful for. That's an experience that made me who I am.
Yes.
And do I still use bits and pieces of the degree in what I do? Sure. That time I spent tapping into my creative side, I still use in bits and pieces in my life, in my practice, in coaching people, in, teaching and running workshops and all that stuff. It's all still there. So even though I don't use it in its totality, parts of it, yes, I absolutely use every day.
Yes. I know. And I keep going back to sort of that self-care part around this a little bit too, that when we sit and watch Netflix all day and think we wasted time, or I brought up an example to someone recently where I was going through something personally and I needed to take a beat from my career at that time, and I needed to take a job doing something like waitressing for a little while, and I needed to do that. And, some people could say that's wasted time, or how do you go from this to that? But that's exactly what I needed to do. And there was nothing about that. It was wasted or negative. And I luckily I did know that at the time, and I didn't do the whole wasted time thing or regret. I knew that at that point I had to take a beat, and I needed to take some time to kind of have a little bit less stress, at least where I worked, and be able to focus more time on myself. So even when it comes to prioritizing our mental health, sometimes that people can also get stuck in viewing that as wasted time if they're not where they exactly want to be. Like, God, I've done 6 months of this, so I should be here now.
Yeah. And that makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Quick refresher for anybody who doesn't know, this guy Maslow came up with a pyramid of, kind of like the human experience of, the base of the pyramid is our base needs of like shelter, money, food, all the things that keep us alive biologically. And then once you take care of that level, you can worry about the next level up, which is like community and friends. And like, as you get to the top, it's more about self-actualization and goal setting and all this stuff. And that example you used of being a waitress for 6 months, 6 weeks?
I don't think it was like 3 months.
3 months? Makes me think of that, because that pyramid or that ladder, that path, or whatever you want to look at it, is not one way. It flows back and forth all the time. So if you get a couple rungs up the ladder or a couple levels up the pyramid, and you're starting to think about, you're starting to realize these goals and become more aligned and like, oh, I know what I want to do. But you hit a snag or something happens where, okay, I have to take a job working as a waitress or a waiter at Applebee's for a little while, or I have to, work at Target or something. No knock to those jobs. They're amazing jobs. People who work in the service industry and retail, I worked in retail for a long time. They have some of the toughest jobs.
Yeah, I was lucky at mine. It was relatively low stress.
Yeah, I mean, I worked as a waiter and in retail, and I tip really well because I know how hard it is. If you have to do that for a little while to take care of those more base needs before you can think about the higher level stuff again, that's totally fine. There is no good or bad about that. It just is. But if it helps you stay afloat, so then after the hard time has passed and you can start thinking about those higher levels, it's done its job. So there is no wasted time in that. It's like, I had to do this thing at this time to keep on the journey that I'm on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And now for a short commercial break. And scene. What did we learn? It's the regret part of it, I think, speaks more of that should again. What should I have been doing? What this wasted opportunity or wasted momentum of, and I don't think that's it at all. I think, and as a coach and maybe as a therapist, we may have some education to do for our clients and for our audience about, because I think when people think of the whole process of self-care, whether it be in therapy or coaching or whatever the case may be, or advising or consultant or whatever, again, I think people have this notion that it's a straight line, like the arrow of time only goes in one direction, can't go backwards. That's not the case at all. There's backward momentum, there's forward momentum, there's stops, there's starts, but it's all part of the process of growing and changing.
I've had this conversation with clients, and I was just having it with a friend on the way here. So it's like, as soon as you start to see behaviors, thinking patterns, or just maybe mood going back to an old familiar spot that you've been working on moving forward from, then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, I've screwed up now and I haven't made any progress. And so remembering that the process of change is not, like you just said, you don't just go up, 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 up. It's you go up, then you go back, and then you go up. It's and that takes time, and that's a normal process of change. And I was also thinking about that in the context of when we look at these stayed in this job too long, or stayed in this relationship too long, or I'll just use those as examples. We, as human beings, have to get to the place where we're ready to change. where we're ready, because we can see it, we can know we're not happy, we can know it's not working, we can know we don't like this person, we can know we don't like this job and why. But that's the easier part. The hard part is actually taking the steps to make the change. And I think we lose sight of that. That
Absolutely.
It's so hard. It's not just as simple. Like, and as a therapist, I have to obviously constantly remind myself, as do you, of like, it's so easy for us to look at X scenario or situation with client and think, well, it's just, they should do this, this, and this. But if you were constantly pushing that, we would have no business, either one of us, because
right.
It's very easy for someone else to say and look at, but it's that person needs to be on their own personal journey, and at whatever time. It's like being in a relationship with somebody and knowing you don't want to be in it, and it taking another 6 months to a year to actually end it. That's one of those things people can really regret and say wasted time about.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of things that had to happen in that time period, and that person had to get to that place where they were ready.
Yeah.
You have to be ready
Yeah.
to make the change, and we don't remember this a lot. We don't understand how big of a force that is in all of this that we're talking about.
Absolutely. It's making me think of, it's fresh in my mind because I'm taking all the classes and it keeps coming up. I read a book, Change for Good, Changing for Good by Prochaska. And they posit there are 6 stages to change. I'm going to put my retainer in for a second, everybody. Talk a little shop with everybody. But it makes sense to me. I like how they put the stages of change because it makes the most sense to me in my like lizard brain. And there's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, you know, and then action, maintenance, and termination. Yep. So it's like, but a lot of us spend our time at those first couple of pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is, I don't even know I need to change. And a lot of us are there. Like,
you might know you're not happy, but you don't even,
Right, exactly. Like, I don't need to, I'm fine, right? And then the contemplation stage is like, oh, I know I need to change, but I'm not quite at the point. And that's where, you know, a lot of these, I hate to reference them, but they popped into my brain, like the intervention shows or like the hoarding shows, or like, I always feel bad for those people because I love watching that. And of course they tap into this like really base level of our brains of like, yes, I want to watch this suffering. But also I feel for those people because they're dancing around those 2 stages of like, I don't need to change and I know I need to change, but I'm not ready.
Yes.
And I say this to a lot of people, if you're not ready to change, you ain't gonna change. And no matter how much your friends and family say you need to change is gonna make a difference because you're not ready. And so you need to be at that point. So if you look back and say, oh, I've wasted all this time doing this thing and I finally found this job that I love and I'm changing now, but I wish I would have did it 10 years ago, you weren't ready 10 years ago. It was not the time for you to change careers 10 years ago. Like they say, oh, the stars have to align for you. And I think that's just a fancy way of saying,
you have to be ready.
You have to be ready, right? Okay, it maybe 10 years ago you weren't ready, but now you're ready. The opportunities are there and you took it and now you're happier and you're, you know, making this change. That's when it happened, you know? No judgment to it. It's just that's when you were ready to make it happen.
Yeah.
Sorry to be so long-winded.
No, that was good. I was enjoying myself.
Okay, great.
I was listening very attentively.
Welcome to my TED Talk. Right?
Yeah, I think, and then if you get stuck, all right, so you get to X point, break up, new relationship, or new job. If you get all sucked into why you didn't do it sooner and how you wasted time and your regrets, you can't even enjoy what you actually did and what you now have. It's going to take away from that.
Right.
So but it takes a lot of challenging, reframing, especially if you're an individual that has any difficulty with your self-esteem. You know, being able to challenge that negative thinking and reframe. So look, that's not easy. It's exhausting. It's a lot of work. But if you can hang in there and do it and keep reminding yourself, then I think you can be a little bit more accepting of yourself, accepting of the situation, and a little bit more positive about where you are and where you've been for whatever that X period of time is that you're struggling to accept.
Yeah. It's not possible if you're a human being, and I hope you are if you're listening to this.
Most of our listeners are human beings.
Most of our listeners are human beings.
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
Birds.
Your owner left, and now I'm talking directly to the dogs and cats that are home, and your owner's not there. Go wild. Screw some shit up. Rip some stuff.
No, be good babies.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Have fun. Talk to the other dogs and cats in the neighborhood.
And tell them all about our podcast.
Crack open a White Claw. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought. See, I go off on a tangent to be funny, and then no, it wasn't your fault. It was my fault. We don't, as a human being, it's impossible for us to spend 100% of our time in the present.
Yes.
It just is. It's just, we're not wired that way. We're either thinking about the past, we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about what to get for dinner tonight, we're thinking about that conversation we had in 5th grade that everybody laughed at us, sharing a little too much, but it happens. It's impossible for us to stay in the present all the time. So I think that's another thing that requires some education or grace on our part, is when we tell people, it's to focus on the now and like reframe things so it makes sense. Also realizing it is hard, like you said, because our brains do want to go back and forth. And I don't know why they do that. People that are, much smarter than me can weigh in on that. But so, yeah, the struggle is real because it's a biological thing. We just biologically can't be in the present all the time. Mm-hmm. So having to reframe and think about the past and the future and why did it take so long, it's just a normal thing. But like you said, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yes,
the
it
easier,
just takes a lot of practice.
Right. The easier it is for you to pull yourself into the present. Like anybody who does any kind of meditation knows, they always tell you, if you have any stray thoughts as you're doing this, right, that's fine. Let them go and come back. That's because that's what we do. Like I do it every morning. I meditate for like 10 or 15 minutes every morning, and without fail, it's always like, oh, I want Subway for lunch. Or
right. Are my jeans clean?
Right. Or did I shower? I don't remember. Maybe that's just me. But that happens, and that's normal. And being okay with that happening, I think, is a big step towards being okay with everything we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I have a very overactive brain. So
yeah.
There's always a lot going. I'm always like, there's a lot going on in here.
It keeps me up at night sometimes. Like I have trouble getting to sleep sometimes because I can't shut my brain off.
Yeah, that's a lot of people do. You should get a therapist.
I know, right? Can you help me find one?
I might know one or two.
Oh boy, waste of time and regret.
I mean, what does it really do for you?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Makes you feel. I almost cursed. Wow. I've been doing so well.
Do not make me check the box.
It makes you feel crappy about yourself. That's the purpose.
That's what I wanted to talk about, because that you mentioned that, and that stuck in my brain. It makes you feel really crappy if all you do is say, I wasted my time, that was a mistake, that was a regret, that that focusing on, because that's focusing on the shoulda, woulda, couldas again, and that doesn't get you anywhere. That just digs you into where you are right now, and you feel even worse. It's a downward spiral, and spirals feed on themselves.
Oh yes, they do.
Negative or positive. There's a way to do positive spirals as well, but I think what we're talking about is a negative spiral of, I wasted my time on that thing. Oh my God, now I just thought about how much money I wasted doing that thing. Oh my God, I wasted a year of my life and wasted money doing that thing. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden it's like you're in the basement.
Yep. Yeah, and even if it's something that you regret that you did to someone, maybe, because we haven't really gone there.
Oh yeah.
Then I think it's even harder to break that, right? But that's where grace, forgiveness, kindness to self comes in. because and understanding where were you with yourself, where were you in life, and what was going on with you when you did X thing that you might regret doing, and being able to, I'm off on a kind of a little bit of a tangent here, but that made that happen. You know, I think that's another piece to it. But that whole concept that I just brought up again today was just something a lot of us struggle so much with, of being understanding, kind, forgiving, and nurturing ourselves. Like, instead of just, God, we're so good at coming in hard and like, you're a jerk, you're this, you're that. And that really doesn't help, obviously.
Right.
I'm not saying, I think people think they're letting themselves off the hook if they look at themselves with more compassion. And that's not true, because you can still learn the lessons and pay attention to what went wrong, maybe, because we do things wrong that we don't feel good about. That's a thing. But what did we learn? What was going on with us at that time? And then having some compassion and some grace, as one of my clients uses a lot, which I love, with ourselves about that.
Yeah, I use the term grace a lot as well. Grace and forgiveness. It's a nice reminder. I like to remind people, especially if I feel like they're beating themselves up a lot. How much grace and forgiveness do you extend to yourself in the course of a week? And usually people are like, oof, I don't think any. And I'm like, do you think that would be a nice place to start? Maybe a little bit.
Right.
A little
And it doesn't take away from responsibility. Doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for something.
Very important.
It doesn't mean you're letting yourself, like I said earlier, off the hook. It doesn't mean any of that. You can still learn, you can still take responsibility and ownership for maybe behavior you're not happy about, but you don't have to attack yourself and continue to punish yourself. That's really not helpful.
And it makes me think what you were saying about, you grow and you change, and, that argument or that thing you did to somebody before, you're not that person. I can draw parallels to that in my life. This time a year ago, like October 13th of 2020, I'm sure I did something to piss somebody off or like made somebody angry or hurt somebody. And I'm sure we talked about it and everything's fine now, but I still think back and I'm like, ooh, that was bad. But then I would like to be better at doing what you just said, of realizing I was a different person back then. Letting the motorcycle go past. I was a different person back then. I've grown, I've changed, I've learned since then. And so again, in the vein of what we've been talking about, of like, it's not wasted time, I learned something from that. And I think that's a big part of positivity in general. Is it's not about being positive all the time, it's saying, what can I learn from this? Right.
Or I was in a bad space. Maybe not that I'm a totally different person, but I was going through a rough patch with whatever was going on, and so I may have behaved in a way I'm not proud of.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So again, extending yourself that grace and forgiveness to say, I'm in a different place. I want to say different person, but I'm on a different point in my path now. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
I love it. Right? That sounded so eloquent.
Thank you.
Everybody write that down.
Thank you.
Ralph said
I'm ready. That. Oprah, again, if you're listening.
Oh my God. If Oprah ever reached out, I would lose my marbles.
My soul would leave my body.
If Gail reached out, I would be like, Gail, that's a link to Oprah. Gail, you're great.
National treasure. Yeah. Gail. We're getting off topic. So to kind of wrap everything up in a pretty little bow.
Yes, let's do that.
Because we've talked about a lot of stuff. Are we going with the notion that there really is no such thing as, generally, no such thing as wasted time?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you can always learn something from, and I know there's going to be smart asses out there who are like, no, but what if this? There's always an exception to every rule. I get that, but I think in general, in big life things, I don't think there's any such thing as wasted time. I think you can always learn something from everything.
Yeah, even if you laid on your couch for a full year, there's a reason.
Sure.
There's a lot of things going on as to why that happened.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily wasted time. There's probably a thousand reasons why that happened that person needed to see and understand in order to not lay on the couch for a year or two.
Right. And then if they realize it and change, and then they become, they come to this different point in their journey where they become a better version of themselves, they can look back and say, wow, I needed to do that because I learned ABC.
Yeah.
Right. And the regret part of it, I think, is a natural part of being a human being, but it's how you handle the regret. We all have regrets about stuff, but I think framing it in a way you said of like, I learned since then. I'm a different person. I had different experiences, and now I know better.
Yeah.
I think that helps to pull yourself out of the spiral.
Yeah, you got to remember where you were when XY thing happened. You got to remember what was going on with you. There's so many factors, especially if you look back and you're like, I can't believe I did that, or I said that, or whatever. I was in that relationship. You've also got to remember where you were at that point in time, because that's the answer is why. There's no reason. It's not these negative messages you're saying to yourself about it. There were very specific reasons as to why that happened.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really enjoyed this.
I always enjoy
this, but I know I say that all the time and it may seem insincere, but I'm a big fan of having really interesting conversations, and so that's why I say it all the time. But this was interesting. I really enjoyed it.
Was this one of your faves, Ralph?
I don't know. It's like picking amongst my children. They're all my favorite. They're all my favorites, no matter what episode it is.
We are both our biggest fans.
Right. We both listen all the time to ourselves.
Do, absolutely.
But no, this was good. And I want to remind everyone again, this is an open forum. We don't not listen to anybody. It's not we don't exist in a bubble.
No.
So if you listen and you enjoy the show and you have a question or feedback, or you want to correct us on something, I've been corrected in the past. I'm very open to it. Please get in touch with us. We're on all the social medias. So if you want to send us a email at heyletmeaskyouSomething@gmail.com and give us a lengthy note, you can please feel welcome to do that. If you follow us on Instagram, drop us a DM and say something or comment on one of our posts. You can comment on Facebook. We're on where else are we at?
Spotify.
Spotify, Apple Music, all those places. There's ways to get in touch with us through the Hey Let Me Ask You Something universe. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you just want to push back on something, please do.
Yes,
because
we want you to.
And even if it's negative, if you're like, I disagree with everything you said, I think you're horrible people, that's something we can use, and we want to have a discussion about that. So everything can be the start of a wonderful conversation. So do that.
Yes. Thank you.
And I know you wanted us to mention we are both accepting new clients right now. So
still have some slots.
I still have some slots as well. So if anybody out there is listening to these and you're like, oh, this is really interesting, great conversations, and you want to maybe work with one of us more to have even more conversations, or maybe continue one of the conversations we've had, please do that. Our contact information is always in the show notes, as always. What do you think?
I liked it.
Knocked another one out of the park?
I think this was a great topic, and I hope everyone else likes it as much as we
I hope so.
Apparently, we both love it. So.
We both are big fans of ourselves.
Loves it too.
No, but our main goal, like I say on the beginning of every episode, is we really want to inspire people to ask more questions.
Yes, that's what we're hoping.
Have more interesting conversations, talk to each other more. So hopefully this is inspiring people to do that. And you haven't wasted your time.
No. No.
Especially in the last 40 minutes.
I have no regrets.
I have no
over
regrets.
The past 40 minutes.
I have no regrets about the last 40
regrets.
minutes.
Yep.
All right, folks. This is another one in the can. Thank you so much.
Signing off.
Signing off. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.